Hello guys, this is Amol Khedkar. I welcome you to this video. Today I'll be talking about the article that you see on your screen, which says Japan's population problem is straining its economy. The world is watching for a solution. This is the third video in my series about the world in 2030, and I will be tackling the country of Japan in this video. Okay, this entire series will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, which is the Amol Khedkar Show. Okay, so please don't forget to check back in daily for new videos where I analyze all the G20 countries, and I will also have some other bonus videos. So and also don't forget to subscribe, because subscriptions really tell me that you guys are liking my content. So let's get started. So Japan is a very unique country in every respect, to be honest with you, because Japan is a very ethnically homogeneous country. It is the land of the rising sun. It is a country that grapples with extreme earthquakes and volcanoes and a whole lot of physical activity, like geographical activity on its soil. And even then, they have been able to industrialize very fast. So Japan was completely devastated by the Second World War, because two atomic bombs were dropped on Japan by America, one on Hiroshima and another one on Nagasaki, and that just completely eradicated the Japanese empire. Okay, so Japan had a huge ambition to set up the Japanese empire in Asia Pacific, and after that they were just completely crushed. They staged a revival by 1970s, 1980s, and many people were saying that Japan is going to surpass America. If you look at many journals in the 1980s, many people were predicting that this will be, Japan will definitely be the next superpower. But that never happened. Japan has had stagnant growth for the past 20 plus years. Okay, it's the fading economy. Japan is not on a very good path at this moment. Okay, and so by 2030, Japan will have a huge population decline, and that will dramatically affect everything, right from the economy to the world stage, like the world ranking of Japan, its say on the world stage, everything. Okay, Japan is really headed towards a disaster. So I will just go through a few things in this article. This is from Bloomberg, as you can see. When it comes to Japan's economy, there's actually two of them. Okay, so Japan's economy, there are actually two of them. In Japan, an urban industrial corridor stretching about 300 miles from Tokyo through Osaka, you will find cutting edge businesses and world class wealth. Okay, so this industrial corridor from Tokyo to Osaka is just astonishing. Okay, this is 300 miles of cutting edge businesses and world class wealth. Japan is literally 20 years ahead of the rest of the world. Okay, Japan is a very industrialized and very advanced society. Japan was the first country to get industrialized in Asia. It is the land of the rising sun. Okay, in Japan B, which is just about everywhere else, small cities and towns are dying as people move to Japan A in search of opportunity. Okay, look at this. This is the same kind of thing that is happening all over the world. Okay, rapid urbanization. In Japan B, which is the Japan outside of the Tokyo Osaka corridor, small cities and towns are dying as people move to Japan A in search for opportunity. Okay, Tokyo is the biggest city in the entire world right now. Okay, and it is also the most expensive city. Even New York or London are nothing in front of Tokyo. Tokyo is very expensive, and it is the largest city in the world right now. Okay, while other major developed economies are headed down a similar path, Japan has a head start on them when it comes to aging and depopulation, making it a cautionary tale for policymakers across the globe. Look at this, okay? While other major developed economies are headed down a similar path, I've talked about this in the video about Australia and South Korea. Okay, both these countries are developed economies, and all of them are headed down a similar path. Japan has a head start on them when it comes to aging and depopulation. So Japan is way ahead of these two countries, Australia and South Korea, in terms of aging. In Japan there are some of the most aged people in the entire world. Okay, Japan is called as the oldest country in the entire world. And depopulation, like people are moving from the the smaller towns to the big cities like Tokyo and Osaka, making it a cautionary tale for policymakers across the globe. Look at this. Like all the countries in the world are just going to say to their people that look at Japan. Okay, Japan is the country that does not allow any immigrants into the country, and it is also very anti-immigrant. It is a very ethnically homogeneous country, and so Japanese language is very hard to learn. It's pretty hard to even live in cities like Tokyo. I have been to Roppongi Hills, which is a suburb of Tokyo, okay, and there are 23 wards in Tokyo, and I've visited some of those parts, okay. So I know that Japan is extremely expensive. It is very hard to live there. Japanese language is not that easy to learn. So there are many things that are against Japan as we go through the decade, okay. Japan's rural population is aging. Percentage of the population age 65 and above. Look at this. So rural Japan is definitely aging, and you can see here Tokyo to Osaka. This corridor is the one that is heavily industrialized, and all the big businesses are over here. But all the other regions of Japan are just completely getting depopulated. People are leaving those areas and coming to this corridor, Tokyo Osaka corridor. The tiny Miseko Asaminai store in Akita prefecture is deep in Japan B, okay. It's part grocery, part gathering place for the area's far-flung and often isolated residents who come to buy necessities and enjoy each other's company. On Thursdays, they sing together. Okay, so this is the kind of rural Japan that we never get to see in the media. Okay, every time we hear about Japan, all we hear is that the sprawling metropolis of Tokyo. Then many times we are shown Osaka. These two are the biggest cities in Japan. Okay, but we are never shown the rural part of Japan. The store opened 3 years ago with government funds to address a growing problem in rapidly aging and depopulating rural Japan. Look at this, rapidly aging and depopulating rural Japan. The struggle to access such basics of modern life as healthcare and groceries. People are not able to buy healthcare and groceries in rural Japan. While Tokyo, it has like world class infrastructure. Okay, this is the exact kind of divide that many countries are facing, the rural urban divide. Okay, but Japan is way ahead of other countries. Okay, Japan is like a poster child for what not to do as a country. Okay, just remember this. It was meant to help people like 66-year-old Etsuko Kudo, who works there. Like many of her generation, she dreads what she will do when she can no longer drive to the shops and the doctor or to see friends. Right now it's fine, Kudo says, but I'm worried about the future, right? So in Japan, nowadays I've heard recently that adult diapers are selling more than baby diapers. No kidding, this is the actual statistic that has come out of Japan, that adult diapers are selling more than baby diapers. In Japan, the number of senior citizens is far more than the number of people who are being born. Okay, there is a generation of Japanese people who are literally just stuck into their house for 25 plus years. They just don't want to get out of their house. They never want to get married. They never want to start a family. They just don't want to do any of that. Okay, so this is what Japan has become. Okay, many youngsters just don't want to get romantically involved. They don't want to get married. They don't want to start a family. So how is the society going to progress after this? Like as I said in my previous video about South Korea, the replacement rate is 2.1. Okay, so every woman in a society needs to have the replacement rate of 2.1 births per woman in order for a society to just replace itself. 2.1, by 2.1 replacement rate, a society does not even grow itself. It just replaces itself. Okay, so if you want to grow the country, then you definitely need to have more than 2.1 children per woman. Okay, and the only countries right now that are in that phase are in Africa and in South Asia. Okay, even China has started declining in population. Okay, there are no young people. Look at this. Okay, everyone's older around here. This is the woman that is saying. But in Asamina, if something happens, everyone comes together because they all need each other, right? But to be honest with you, how much can an old person do, right? I mean, at one point, your age also starts showing its colors, right? I mean, you don't have the kind of physical strength or mental strength after you are 70 or 80 or 90, and people are living that long in Japan. It's not a laughing matter. People are just not dying, and new people are not getting born. The same kind of thing that is happening in South Korea and in Australia. I mean, if you would have seen both of my videos before, I talk about the exact same things in both these videos. Okay, Japan's rural population is expected to plunge another 17% in just 12 years. Okay, Japan's rural population is expected to plunge another 17% in just 12 years from 2018 through 2030, according to United Nations data. Okay, it is expected to plunge by 17%. Okay, I've made a video about this where I say that Japan as a country will stop existing by 2100. By the end of this century, Japan will stop existing as a country. It's an existential crisis for Japan. Don't forget to check all those videos out. They are on my channel. Okay, Further out, the decline will steepen with the population falling by 2% per year in the 2030s. Okay, so the decline is going to steepen because new people are just not getting born. Okay, so that's what it means by population falling by 2% per year by 2030s. So by 2030, Japan is really facing a catastrophic scenario because it will be very very hard for Japan to even sustain as a country. Okay, in the US, the rural population will fall 7.4% between 2018 and 2030, according to UN projections, with much steeper drops in the Great Plains and Corn Belt. Okay, population in rural Germany will drop 7.3% over the same time period, while Italy's will fall 15%. Look at the different statistics for different countries now. For US, it is 7.4%. Okay, in Germany, it is 7.3%. Not that big of a deal. For Japan, it's 17%. Okay, and Italy, it's 15%. Look at this. Even Italy is part of southern Europe. Okay, I will cover Italy in deep in the videos that I will make about what Italy will look like in 2030. But Italy is not very different from Japan. Okay, Italy is in the exact same thing as Japan, but Japan is way ahead from all other countries. Okay, by the 2040s, rural depopulation in Japan will outpace that in every country except Bulgaria and Albania. Okay, so Bulgaria and Albania, both these are like the Eastern European countries, and as you know, Eastern Europe is completely getting depopulated. All the people are moving to Western Europe, and there are only old people in Eastern Europe at this point. Okay, so 2040 rural depopulation in Japan will outpace that in every other country. Okay, except Bulgaria and Albania. But Bulgaria and Albania are not that advanced economies as Japan. Okay, Japan is a very advanced economy, and that's why it matters much more for Japan than it does for Bulgaria and Albania. Some predict hundreds of small cities and towns will be completely deserted over time. Look at this. Some predict hundreds of small cities and towns will be completely deserted over time. Okay, there are instances where schools are just getting shut off in Japan because there are not enough students. This is real. This is what is happening in Japan right now. Many more will become unlivable by today's standards. But what they are seeing, just look at this. Okay, many small cities and towns will become unlivable by today's standards. Why do you think this happens, right? When does a city or town become unlivable? When there are not enough infrastructure, when there are not enough people in that area. Okay, so because Japan is depopulating at such a fast rate, there will not be enough people to sustain that city, because you need people. Demography is a very important thing. You need people to work, to carry out things, to deliver groceries, to do healthcare. You need doctors, you need engineers for the society to function properly. But when everybody is moving out of Japan and going to the big cities, and even in big cities they are not setting up families, they are just trying to enjoy their life. Things are not looking very well for Japan, to be very honest with you. Percentage change in the rural population 2018 to 2030. Look at this. Okay, China, Taiwan, Japan, Thailand, Italy, France, Malaysia, UK, Indonesia, US, and all these countries. Okay, look at where this is now. Okay, China is the most amount of has the most amount of percentage change in rural population from 2018 to 2030, because China is a very big country, and there are hundreds of cities in China that are just sprawling like anything. Okay, just look at Shanghai was literally like a rural town just 30 years ago. Now it is the biggest city. It is one of the major metros in the world. Okay, look at Beijing, look at Shenzhen. Okay, these are very big cities, so that's why percentage change in China is very high. Taiwan also on the same path. Japan also just below Taiwan. Thailand, Italy, France, Malaysia, UK. Look at India, look at Canada. Okay, it's almost negative. So people are moving from cities to rural areas. So that's really interesting. In fact, many of those left behind the rural areas are already struggling. Okay, many of them, those left in the rural areas, are already struggling. More than 80% of towns that replied to an agriculture ministry survey last year said they need to take steps to help residents who find it difficult to obtain groceries, with almost all citing aging as a reason. Okay, people are finding it difficult to obtain groceries because they are aging very rapidly. Okay, this is what Japan looks like. So do you think, and this is the situation right now. Okay, what do you think is going to happen by 2030? Japan will become more older. There will not be enough young people to pay taxes and sustain Japan's economy. So Japan is really headed towards a very huge disaster, to be very honest with you. Okay, from 2002 to 2017, more than 7,000 public schools across Japan shut their doors, as I just said, right? The majority in rural areas, as the country's birth rate remained mired well below replacement level. Okay, from 2002 to 2017, more than 7,000 public schools across Japan shut their doors. Just let that sink in for a moment. Okay, the majority in rural areas in Japan B, that's what it was called. Okay, as the country's birth rate remained mired well below replacement level. The replacement level is 2.1 births per woman, as I have told you in my previous videos, and Japan's birth rate is well below, is way below the replacement level. There's just no doubt about that. As more schools close and other services disappear or become harder to access, young families will have even more reason to flock to the cities. True, right? As more schools close and other services disappear. As I said, depopulation has a drastic effect on everything, from economy to public spending to schools, colleges, universities, everything. As more schools close and other services just disappear because there are not enough people or become harder to access, as people are trying to get groceries in these rural areas. Young families will have even more reason to flock to the cities. So young families will just go to the cities, the Tokyo Osaka corridor. As a result of younger generations moving from Japan B to Japan A, household assets are also likely to flow in the same direction via inheritance. Okay, in the 20 to 25 years from 2014, two-thirds of Japan's prefectures are expected to see over 20% of household assets leave their borders because of this reason, according to Sumitomo Mitsui Trust Bank. Okay, so what they are saying is that in 20-25 years, two-thirds of Japan's prefectures, there are prefectures in Japan, so these are just like regions in Japan, are expected to see over 20% of household assets leave their borders. So household assets will leave the borders of rural Japan and they will come to urban Japan, which is the Tokyo Osaka corridor, and that will just again just exacerbate the kind of decline of Japan in the near future. Okay, young people flock to Tokyo Shinjuku district, right? So far, the lesson for other nations seems to be that the flow of people and wealth into urban areas is almost impossible to halt. Okay, it's not easy for governments to tell people that they should not come to the cities, because cities have everything. Okay, and Japan is like a poster child of it. Okay, look at this. So the lesson for other nations seems to be that the flow of people and wealth into urban areas is almost impossible to halt. Okay, so Japan, every country is just trying to point a finger at Japan and telling their people that this is how your future looks like. Okay, so Japan is like as I said, it is exactly the country which tells you what not to do. Okay, some Japanese economists even say the government should stop trying and instead focus on adapting to an inevitable mega trend. Okay, so some Japanese economists are saying that government should just stop trying. The government should just stop trying, luring people from cities to rural areas, because that's just not going to help. And they should just instead focus on adapting to an inevitable mega trend. So adapting to an inevitable mega trend. What is the mega trend? People are just moving to the cities. They are completely deserting the rural areas, and the cities are just becoming very, very overcrowded. They're becoming very expensive, and families are just getting disrupted. And Japan is just headed to a disaster. That's just the inevitable mega trend that many economists are trying to portray. Okay, the Japanese government hasn't given up just yet. Okay, so Japanese government is still trying to tell people that just remain in rural areas, but people are just not listening. It's offering one-off cash payments of up to 3 million yen to anyone willing to move out of Greater Tokyo to work for a small or medium-sized company or to start a business, as well as a range of subsidies for local universities and businesses. Okay, so look at this. Government is offering subsidies now for people who want to move out of Greater Tokyo. As I said, Greater Tokyo is the biggest conglomerate, very big city. It is the most expensive city in the entire world. To work for a small or medium-sized company or to start a business, so they just want to spur the growth in the rural areas, but people are just not buying that thing. Even after giving universities, even after giving subsidies, people just don't want to get out of Greater Tokyo area. Its efforts have claimed some success, such as creating more jobs for young people, but it hasn't changed the fundamental story. Okay, look at this. Its efforts have claimed some success, such as creating more jobs for young people. So it has created a few more jobs for young people, but it hasn't changed the fundamental story. Fundamental story is that people are just moving from rural areas to urban areas, and they're deserting the rural areas in Japan. Okay, to be sure, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's policies have largely focused on and benefited Japan A, in which about half of the country's 126 million people live on just 14% of the landmass. Look at this. Okay, this is very, very important thing for a country like Japan, which is just so densely populated. Okay, look at this. I will just read it one more time. Shinzo Abe's policies have largely focused on and benefited Japan A. So the people who are already in a very good situation, the prime minister's policies are benefiting those same people, and they are not benefiting the rural people. Okay, that's the tragedy of Japan, in which about half of the country's 106 million people live on just 14% of the land mass. 126 million people is the population of Japan right now. Okay, by 2050 it is estimated to become less than 100 million. Okay, because of the same thing like aging and depopulation. And they half of the people, like almost 60 to 60 63 million people live in on just 14% of the land mass of Japan. That's how overcrowded Japan is. Okay, politically that's worked. Okay, so politically Abe's policies have worked because most of the ministers and members of parliaments are in the Greater Tokyo region. Okay, Abe is set to become the nation's longest serving prime minister in November. So the Abe also has a term coined after him which is called the Abenomics. Okay, if you know what I mean. And he is going to become the nation's longest serving prime minister in November. Look at this. So all these things just point out to the exact same kind of madness that has been going on in Japan for long time. Okay, I've been working in this market for 50 years since I was 26. Okay, the market used to be very busy and it was hard to even find a space for my booth to sell products. But now the street is almost empty, said Kokuyo Kono, 76 in Gojome. Okay, so as you can see here, these markets are just completely deserted in rural Japan. The post office was run by my husband's family for many years. Now I work here every day, but only about 5 customers come in each day, said Mitsuko Saruta, 54 in Asaminai. Again, same thing. The Asaminai post office, more than half of the population of Asaminai is above the age of 65. Okay. Ichi Kudo's barber shop. Akita is aging faster than any other prefecture in Japan. This was a family business, but I don't work much anymore because there aren't many people living here, said Kudo 74. I had only 2 classmates of my elementary school. It was sad to see the school's buildings get demolished. This is a student saying, I had only 2 classmates at my elementary school. It was sad to see the school's buildings get demolished. School's buildings just got demolished because there were not enough students to come to the school, said Hayaka Saga, a 24-year-old nurse who was visiting her parents' home in Asaminai. She lives in Akita city with her husband. With depopulation, elementary schools across Akita are closing down, with some being demolished. Okay, these are all the signs of a society in decline for Japan. Okay, the world's most ambitious monetary stimulus campaign has spurred a revival in Japan B. Okay, world's most ambitious monetary stimulus campaign has spurred a revival in Japan B, in the rural Japan. In fact, side effects from the Bank of Japan's radical program have only compounded the strains. Okay, so what they are saying is that even after giving monetary stimulus, side effects from the Bank of Japan's radical program have only compounded the strain. So it has worked, it has backfired, it has worked in the opposite direction. Okay, regional banks already struggling with untenable business models are taking on more risk just to stay afloat, as near zero and negative interest rates make turning a profit even more challenging. Japan is the only country, and some other countries also are in that same boat, that has negative interest rates. Okay, so the Bank of Japan is lending money on negative interest rates, which is just madness. Okay, I still don't understand how negative interest rates work. So once I get a hang of it, I will be able to understand it. But to be honest with you, this is a recipe for disaster. Okay, regional banks already struggling with untenable business models are taking on more risk just to stay afloat. Because they are just taking on more risk, because if they don't take more risk, then nobody is going to invest into them. And these banks all work. If you know how the banking structure works, banks only work if they give loans. Okay, that's why so many banks are just eager to give loans to everybody. They just want to give loan to each and every person that is walking down the street. Okay, monetary policies side effects absolutely show up more in these regions. Okay, said Mari Iwashita, chief market economist at Dawai Securities. Okay, Japan will fare better in the 21st century if it reinvents itself as more of a city-state than a continental nation, said Kotaro Kawazu, executive fellow at the Namura Research Institute, one of Japan's most prominent think tanks. Okay, just look at this. Japan will fare better in the 21st century if it reinvents itself as more of a city-state than a continental nation. City state, just imagine this. City state, what does it mean by city state? Like Singapore, like Hong Kong. Okay, so what they are saying is that Japan will just be much more better if it just considers itself as a city state, which is like Tokyo Osaka corridor, and that will be the entire country of Japan, and nobody will live in the rest of Japan. Okay, that's what people are saying right now in Nomura Research Institute, which is a very reputed think tank. Okay, in Japan. Cities will drive the future. So, to compete globally, Japan should give more resources and power to Tokyo, or what will become the Tokyo megalopolis, he said. Okay. So people are just flocking to Tokyo, but the side effects of living in a city are just very very visible in Japan. As I said, there is a whole generation of Japanese people who just don't want to get married, who don't want to start a family, who don't want to produce children. They just don't want to do any of that. In city life, it has been statistically proven that when people migrate from rural areas to cities, then their intention of starting a family diminishes drastically. Okay, these are statistical facts that are proved by PhD papers all around the world, where they say that when people come from villages to cities, then definitely their urge to start a family reduces drastically. And that's exactly what is happening in Japan. That's why they are not even at the replacement level of the birth rate. So definitely Japan is facing a very nightmare scenario in the near future. Okay, I believe Japan should be reconceived through the lens of the city. So that's what most of the policymakers are just telling Japanese government to just focus on the greater Tokyo region and the megalopolis of Tokyo, and just forget about the rural areas, because the rural areas are just going to vanish anyway. So it's a very brutal thing to say, but that's what many policymakers are saying. Okay, Japan's working age population shrinks as it ages. This is a very important thing. Like what you just look at this. Japan's working age population shrinks as it ages. Estimated population breakdowns from 2015 to 2045. Okay, look at this. Now 0 to 14-year olds are this. Okay, 15 to 64-year olds are the dark yellow thing, and they're shrinking, as you can see here. Okay, year on year it is just shrinking. Okay, then you have 65 to 74-year old is here, and 75 plus is rising. Can you imagine this? Look at this. 75 plus year old population of 2015 2045 is going to rise. No wonder Japan is in a very drastic situation. It won't be possible, practically speaking, to keep all of Japan connected to gas and sewer lines, or to maintain ambulance services within 20 minutes of every town. So bringing people into more concentrated spaces would be safer for everyone, he said. Right? So that's what they're just taking practical decisions at this point. What he's saying is that it won't be possible, practically speaking, to keep all of Japan connected to gas and sewer lines, or to maintain ambulance services within 20 miles of every town. So bringing people into more concentrated spaces would be safer for everyone. That's what they're saying. Okay, but some are against this argument. Former Tokyoite Ryo Yanagisawa is one of them, heading a startup that helps people and firms move to the countryside. So people are making efforts to help people to move to the countryside. The 20th century was an age of competition, said the 32-year-old. But shouldn't the 21st century be more about happiness? These are all very idealistic things, but the world is not ideal, to be very honest with you. And you come to this channel because you want to hear the truth, and the brutal truth. Okay, and many times truth is brutal, and that's why I don't sugarcoat any things. I just give you the truth as it is. So I don't think this can work, because the world does not work on idealistic patterns. It is a very realistic and practical world. Okay, his firm Dutch Avengers is based on what used to be a primary school in Akita, 40 minutes by car from Kodo store. In the Babame area where he lives, there is a community, nature, and a richer way of life, Yanagisawa says. Okay, once a week, local residents gather to eat lunch and sing together at the Maseiko Asamane grocery. So they want to revive that culture, but it's going to be very hard. And to be honest with you, in my personal opinion, it's not going to come back. Okay, anytime, it's never going to come back. Japan and many other countries are facing rapid urbanization, and many people are just going to live in the cities in the near future. That's just the plain fact. But as the divide between the two Japans grows starker, a flow of younger people to opportunity in Japan A appears unstoppable. Look at this, just exactly what I said just a few seconds back. Okay, as the divide between the two Japans grows starker, so the divide is just going to keep on growing. Okay, the flow of younger people to opportunity in Japan A appears unstoppable. So people are just going to keep on coming to Japan A, which is the Tokyo Osaka corridor. Consider Sho Otani, 33, who moved to Tokyo from his native Gifu in western Japan when he was 21. After studying aerospace engineering at the elite University of Tokyo, he now works in artificial intelligence. He has no intention of moving back to his native prefecture. There is nothing I can immediately say that's good about Gifu. That's what they are saying. So people just don't want to move back to their original prefectures, to their original way of life in Japan. That's what many countries are facing in the entire world. I will analyze more other countries that are the so-called developed countries, but they are facing a huge population decline, and some of these countries employ tactics like immigration. So they try to bring more and more people from outside to fill up that kind of wage gap and employment gap. But there are ethnic countries like Japan, like South Korea, like Russia, like China, that are just in a very sad situation, so there are two types of countries in the world, okay, just to give you an idea. One of them are ethnic countries. Ethnic countries are the countries that are based on ethnic population. So which are those? Like most of the Asian countries, okay, so like India, China, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, not Singapore, sorry, so China, so Korea, or Japan, Russia, okay, most of the Eastern European countries like Hungary, Albania, Bulgaria, many countries in Africa, okay, Ethiopia, Nigeria, or what else, Namibia. All these countries are ethnic countries, okay, or many countries in Latin America as well, right? So Brazil, Argentina, okay, these are all ethnic countries. But then which are immigrant countries? Immigrant countries in today's world are like US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Germany. Germany used to be an ethnic country, but now it has started becoming like an immigrant destination, okay. Then France, again ethnic country, started becoming an immigrant destination. So immigrant countries at least have some sort of leverage, that they can just use the kind of Hollywood propaganda to lure people to their countries, and start families over there and just contribute to their economy with the in the form of taxes. But ethnic countries just don't have that kind of opportunity, okay. So China, I will talk about this in the video about China, but China's population has already started declining, and so by 2030 China is going to lose a significant amount of people. So people are saying by the end of this century China will just have around 1 billion people, okay. Right now China's population is around 1.4 billion people, okay. But by the end of the century, just in like 80 years from now, China will lose almost 400 million people. Look at this statistic, okay. This is just very astonishing. 400 million people is more than the entire population of America. Can you imagine this? Okay. Population of America right now is almost 350 to 370 million. So China is going to lose 400 million by the end of this century. This is a very important thing, and population aging is a very, very important concept that many people just disregard, and they just don't want to talk about it. But I will definitely address all these things in my channel, and so I will stop talking here. Check out all my other videos, and also check out this series that I am doing, because it is very important for people to understand where we are headed in the next decade, okay. So if you like my analysis of this video, of this article, please don't forget to like, comment and share this video. Also subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I see you next time. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.